All right.
Um, let's see.
All right. So just want to welcome everybody to our May virtual town hall. We're still talking about coronavirus and how we've been dealing with all the situations. Uh, we have a few people on the call today, so hopefully we'll have some more people step in. And just doing introductions, I am Jay Reed, the Chapter Tier School Mentors. We have April Ham, as well as Antonio Alonso, who is from Fund 17. Uh, just want to welcome everybody back to the Small Business Town Hall, and we can actually get into it if we. April, do you have your do you have
Uh,
your
we're still waiting for at least one person. Maybe we can start with Q&A today, or maybe with announcements from Fund 17 if they have any.
I know Antonio, do you want to start with the announcements?
Sure, I'll go ahead. So, hi everyone, I'm Antonio with Fund 17, and we're a business incubator based in the 7th Ward and doing what we can right now to respond to COVID-19. So I'm staying in the loop of the city conversations, and this week the conversation started to turn to reopening. So the city is actually starting to think about how we can safely reopen. So that is something coming down the pipeline, and it is something to be aware of. If you stay on top of ready.nola.gov, you'll be able to watch the press releases that are coming out. If my memory serves, I believe our official last day of the shelter-in-place order is the 16th. So there can be slow reopening, tiered reopening after that. There's not very clear instructions or directions or approaches for how to do this best. There's some things coming out, for example, or ideas that aren't quite in policy yet, and guidelines. GNO Inc. is doing a webinar I'll post in a second. Some other examples are like bars are not going to allow seating at the bar, but may allow use of tables. Or one of the confusing parts has been how can restaurants serve people with masks, and it seems like that might turn into when they're seated they don't have to wear the mask. So we'll see. So that's just something to be aware of. Reopening is a conversation that's starting, and it could happen as early as May 16th. I would expect to not be doing business the same way if you were interacting with a lot of customers before, and to take precautions to prevent contagion. So the webinar I just referenced was, it's called GNO Inc. Presents Getting Back to Work in the New Normal. So let me just paste the link here. So if you're on the Zoom, you can see in the chat, I've just pasted the link to that webinar as well as the recent press release about reopening. So those are a couple of resources for you to be aware of. Stay on top of ready.nola.gov for updates, which are developing fast. I guess I could also share, at least this is the last information that I received about the federal programs with the EIDL loans through the SBA website, the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan. I believe there's temporarily, they're prioritizing farmer applications right now. And earlier today around lunch, I don't think the portal was open yet to apply on the SBA's website after the second round of funding, maybe even the second, was approved, which we were talking about on our last town hall. So that's just to say, watch the SBA disaster loan portal for when it reopens on their website. The other things I had to share were a bunch of announcements about specific webinars that Fund 17 has been planning. Some of these were partnered with SCORE on. Should I jump into that? Do we have time, or should we maybe save announcements for the end?
Sure, now's fine. Go ahead, thanks.
Okay. All right, so that webinar, by the way, that I put in the chat earlier is tomorrow around at lunch at noon. We're also hosting a webinar tomorrow called Budgeting and Cash Flow Analysis. So this is going to be helping you manage your cash flow and revenue risks right now during COVID-19. So I'm going to do my best to like talk at the same time as I'm typing into the chat. But this is that first event happening tomorrow evening at 6 p.m., our cash flow analysis webinar. Then we have another event coming up on Wednesday, May 13th. Helping is the new selling. Getting into the conversation around pivoting right now and what it means to do business in the age of COVID-19. Because we keep talking about quote unquote when it's over, but really we need to be thinking differently. It's not going to just end. We need to be thinking about the new normal. So the next thing I'm sharing is a webinar series that we are launching called Pivot, or Innovation for Uncertain Times. This is led by Crystal Sims. She's a native New Orleanian who lived in California for a while and developed her marketing career and moved back more recently and is wanting to do her part in supporting local entrepreneurs. So we've partnered with her to put on this series. It's a bi-weekly series helping you to adapt to the new normal. We're looking at things like switching to e-commerce, keeping customers engaged during shelter in place or limited, more limited foot traffic. The next thing I wanted to share is something we've been thinking a lot about, and part of it has been inspired by these calls. This is our entrepreneur virtual support group, which we'll also be doing on a bi-weekly basis. Obviously, a lot of people are confused right now. So this is actually being run by her name's Nikki Mingeldorf, who just graduated from Fund 17's Benchmarks program. Her business is called Learning Through Play, and she is going to be managing the support group. And actually, Fund 17 staff are, in order to maintain the, I don't know what words I'm thinking about, the sanctity of the space and just like having a safe space. Fund 17 staff are actually not going to be present on those support group calls. It's going to be managed by Nikki, who's also an entrepreneur like many like those on this call. So the final, I'm just realizing how many announcements I'm sharing, but that support group, it starts on May 20th. It's in the evenings. The last thing that I wanted to share is the day after, May 21st, we're doing a webinar on managing catastrophic risks. We've partnered with a local privately owned insurance firm, insurance placement and design. Some of you might know Sabrina Bush-Hillard. She'll be leading that workshop. So I think I successfully managed to copy and paste all of the right links as I was talking, so they're in the chat. And yeah, thank you everyone for bearing with me as I got through my various announcements. If anyone has maybe some short questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thanks so much, Antonio. All of that sounds really good and actually very exciting. Lots of helpful programs for business owners at different stages in their business. And I also, of course, really like the idea of the support group.
Right. Cool. Yeah. Thank you for helping to inspire that.
Oh, sure. Thanks. Do we have any questions for Antonio from our attendees this evening? We've got pretty good today. All right, let's keep going. Jay, did you want to for your Q&A, or do you want to save that for the end?
We can actually save it for the end if we have all the speakers in yet. If not, we can start with the Q&A.
We're missing one person, but I guess we can go ahead and start with who we have, and then if they're able to join, I'm not sure if something came up or what. So we'll go ahead and then and just keep it moving. All right, so we actually kind of covered a little bit of what I wanted to discuss tonight, which was the fact that governors are making moves to relax shelter in place and slowly reopen the economy. And business owners really have to make a decision if and when to reopen. Certainly, we can't allow public decisions to dictate how we run our businesses. You know, if it's not safe, we don't want to open too soon. If it's safe, we have to kind of look at what we need to have in place so that we can safely reopen, you know, both for ourselves and our staff as well as our customers. So, you know, it's definitely not cut and dry, as Antonio was saying. And so I wanted, you know, just for a few business owners that we do have on the call, just to kind of talk through what that looks like for different kinds of businesses and different size businesses. How are you making that decision of when you should reopen, if you're going to reopen, and what kinds of safety protocols you're going to put in place? What will business look like for you in the new normal? So getting started, let's see. I'd like to start with Jamie Nakan, who is a licensed sports massage therapist here in the greater New Orleans area. Jamie, are you there? Let's see, maybe we can help him get unmuted.
Okay, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right.
Hi, Jamie.
Hello.
If you can start by just telling us a little bit about your business and how has your business been impacted by the pandemic?
Okay, well, as you mentioned, I'm a sports massage therapist, pain management. That's the two main target audience that I'm going for as far as clients. It has greatly impacted me thus far because obviously living in the New Orleans area, we are highly reliant on tourism and you know, jobs like in hospitality, which has been greatly affected by the virus and the pandemic. So, and then also people are a bit apprehensive to get out, and obviously I'm not considered an essential employee either. So it's greatly impacted me and shut business down.
Right, and so for you, what are some of the aspects of the kind of work that you do that you really have to think about in terms of this particular infectious disease and how you're going to be operating going forward when you get to reopen?
Well, first and foremost, my health and safety and the health and safety of the client is obviously paramount. So just looking at what the state board as well as massage insurance companies and whatnot put out there as far as what protocols we should be taking and adhering to. So just trying to keep an eye out for anything that's coming out as far as what protocols we should be taking to ensure the safety of us and the client.
So then you do have some guidance besides, say from our politicians. You have, sort of like professional or industry guidance, and you're not necessarily making the decision on your own. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, thankfully we do have the AMTA has been putting out some information, as well as I'm a member of a face group of Louisiana massage therapists, which they've been putting out some information. Unfortunately, our state board has honestly they haven't really done much in this pandemic. They keep using the excuse that they can't meet up due to the pandemic and because you can't do face-to-face meetings. So they really, unfortunately, haven't really been putting much out as far as if we're going to be allowed to open on the 15th, what should be protocols set in place, things of that nature.
Okay, and so you're kind of having to do some exploring on your own in terms of talking to your colleagues and other folks in the industry to kind of figure out among yourselves how you're going to reopen and what's going to be needed in order to reopen safely, because even some of your guidance isn't necessarily complete, because everybody's affected by this, from business owners, through licensing board, persons and, groups themselves. So yeah, it's definitely a very challenging time. So,
Definitely.
yeah. And then another question for you, Jamie. Given that massage therapy is a hands-on practice, there's really no way to socially distance yourself with your clients. What is the implication for a massage therapist, who are in, solo practice as well as, say, chains like Massage Envy? Like, what is the implication for that type of business where social distancing is not practical? It's not really possible. There have been some interesting memes on the internet, showing people getting massages with broomsticks and, plungers and, for cupping and things like that. It's definitely kind of funny, but, seriously, how will the massage therapy practice continue in this new climate where we do need to be so precautious?
It appears that we will, everybody will definitely be having to wear masks. So that's definitely one of the steps that is going to be taken. One of the things I've also read on the one of the massage pages I belong to is there's a lot of recommendation for using a certain amount of bleach mixed with water to disinfect. Just making sure you're wiping things down. And as far as like chains are concerned, being that I'm an independent therapist, I could schedule the amount of time that I need to prepare for the next person and make sure everything is sanitized properly. That will be more of an issue for the bigger chains such as Massage Envy, spas, things of that nature, because their normal flip time, which is between clients, is normally about 10 minutes. So you really normally have about 5 minutes in those types of environments in between clients. So you have to try to flip your room, go use the restroom if you have to, get a drink of water. They're definitely going to have to adjust and give more time for therapists to wipe everything down thoroughly and make sure everything is sanitized.
Yeah, so So there are some pretty good pretty good guidelines as far as um, safety for all massage therapists, but you're saying that depending on the work environment, there may need to be some scheduling adjustments to ensure that those safety protocols can be implemented.
Yes, it's going to be easier for independent therapists because most independent therapists tend to keep more leeway and more time in between clients to flip the room and maybe grab a bite to eat and just not be in such a rush. Whereas the spa industry, chains and whatnot, they tend to try to see as many people as possible. So your flip time is only going to generally be about 10 minutes. So they're definitely going to have to push it to at least 30 minutes more than likely, just to make sure that everything is properly sanitized.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So finally, before we try to bring in some other callers, just maybe share with us what it has been like for you to not operate during this time. What have been some of the challenges, and also how has this impacted your clients? Because I'm sure you probably have kind of a core group that you see regularly. What kind of feedback have you been getting from them? Are they excited for you to reopen? Do they just want you to wait? What does that look like for you?
Well, to answer the first part of the question, it has honestly been extremely stressful for me. Just not knowing what's what's the next step in all of this, not knowing where money's gonna come from. When this pandemic first hit, everyone kept saying about these PPP loans and the EIDL loans, that just fill it out. You're pretty much guaranteed $10,000, and unfortunately, those loans tended to go to the larger, smaller businesses, whereas I'm more of a micro business. So unfortunately, a lot of us just kind of fell through the cracks. So that part has been extremely stressful, and then just not knowing how long this is going to last. When I'll be able to reopen and whatnot, and what that's going to look like, because this area was so devastated. How many people will be able to come back as was before? As far as clients are concerned, I do try to reach out to clients on a regular basis, and the majority of them are very eager for me to open, saying that this has been very stressful for them, and they'll definitely be ready for some body work.
Right, because a lot of your clients, for them, this really isn't a luxury for them. It's really part of really their like their profession, because they are athletes and bodybuilders, right?
Yes, definitely. Working with a lot of bodybuilders and athletes in general, their body is their way of life and their money ticket. So if they're not able to perform optimally, that will affect their checkbook. And then the other set of my clients are people seeking pain management. So a lot of them obviously haven't been able to see myself for the massages. Not of chiropractors, maybe some of them I think are just starting to get back to work. I'm not sure. I know a lot of them weren't working for a while, so their pain management hasn't been addressed during this pandemic.
Yeah, and then that kind of goes back to what is an essential business, right? Or like what is essential healthcare? Because a lot of the focus, of course, is on managing COVID-19. But of course, prior to COVID-19, we had all kinds of health issues that various types of health professionals were helping to manage, pain being a big one. And, of course, a lot of people are choosing massage because they don't necessarily want to, take pain pills, or maybe they are on some kind of medication, but they, want to keep it to a minimum and, use different types of therapies. And so by having massage therapy places closing, they their quality of life has really suffered. Would you agree?
Oh, definitely. It's been difficult for everyone. My heart goes out to everyone that has lost someone or has had to deal with this directly. Thankfully for myself, I haven't. But as far as that's concerned, yes, the people that are normally getting their massages, it's been 2 months now basically that have been shut down. So like I had someone that I would see every single week, and she has dealt with a lot of different types of issues and surgeries and whatnot and PT, and the massages is one of the things that's really helped her been able to function. And so not having this for 2 months, it's been very difficult for her.
Wow. So Jamie, thank you so much for taking your time and sharing these different insights and sharing about both your practice and your clients, as well as the industry in general. Can you stay on the call for us just to kind of jump back in towards the end?
Yes.
All right, great. Thanks again.
All right, thank you.
So next I'd like to bring in Dr. Sandra Gibbs on the call. Can you hear us and join the call, Dr. Gibbs?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, great. Thank you. I'm glad you were able to be here. First of all, how are things going with you?
Things are going fairly well. As you know, I have a medical practice, which I made a tough decision of closing during this pandemic. My office is a very small office with a small waiting room and just a couple of patient care areas. So being able to distance the patients and the staff was kind of difficult for us. So because of my safety, my staff safety, and the safety of my patients, we chose to close the office. During this closure, I've been able to do some telemedicine. So in a way, I've kind of kept things going, but definitely not at the rate that I would have been taking care of patients had I not had to close the office.
Mm-hmm. And so what type of medicine do you practice, and how has this affected your patients?
I'm a family practice physician, so I take care of general medical issues for the family, although my practice right now is predominantly an adult practice. My patients, in addition to just the increased stress of going through the pandemic, have had to, change the way they seek medical care. Most things being handled by telephone or video calls, and just the isolation of everything, and changing in the family structure in terms of families not being able to get together, and then a lot of times just getting to the doctor's office once a month or once every other month is like a social outing for them. So missing their caregivers as well as the staff and everybody that would usually take care of them. So a lot of added stress in that sense.
Wow. So the social isolation really kind of cuts through multiple areas of life, like not just seeing family and friends, but the social aspect of care seeking, which, especially for smaller practices, those personal relationships are very important.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
we've kind of missed out on that and had to put that aside for now.
Mm-hmm.
So and that adds an extra strain on doing a telephone visit because, in addition to taking care of their medical needs, you have to kind of catch up on all of the social needs as well. Um, so it's been a struggle, but we've been handling it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm certainly glad to hear that. And then next, Dr. Gibbs, can you just talk to us a little bit on the business aspect of private practice? Like how has this impacted your business, or you as a business owner? What have been the challenges that you faced during this time, and what solutions worked out for you?
Okay. Well, starting, I guess, before the closure of the business and everything, there was a lot of anxiety around, especially people with high risk conditions coming out. So the business part had seen some struggles and suffering because of patients not being able to come into the office, and with the office, us trying to make sure that they were still getting what they needed. So we had some decrease in slowing down of business even prior to closing down. So since we've closed, luckily our staff members were able to qualify for unemployment. So that took care of some of the stress of making sure that they were taken care of. So that kind of helped keep things going without having to worry about, other than still providing their health insurance. A lot of the other added costs were taken over by unemployment. Um, and everything else I've been pretty much kind of trying to handle on my own, between taking care of the patients and taking care of the billing and taking care of maintaining their refills and everything. That's kind of, kept things kind of going. So, from a financial standpoint, certainly just the lack of business means lack of finances coming in, and lack of finances coming in as an added struggle to paying bills and making sure that everything was taken care of. I don't think I thought it would take this long of a time being out of work. Um, not knowing when this pandemic thing will change. And although the governor in the state of Georgia has made some tough decisions to kind of open things back up slowly, it's still, the same struggles that were there before he opened things up are there now, in terms of being a small office and not being able to distance patients. Certainly still having to do all of the hand washing and sanitizing and all of that. But it made it extra difficult being in a smaller office where you couldn't spread out in the first place. So we'll still have all of those struggles when we return to work.
And so, when are you planning to reopen the physical office?
Well, we're hoping to reopen within the next 2 weeks. One of the things that's kind of adding extra confusion to when we reopen is we were lucky enough, I guess, to be qualified for the small business PPP loan, which kind of adds an added struggle, because in order for the PPP loan to be forgiven as a grant, you have to utilize the money within 8 weeks of receiving the money. So that kind of pushes you to get back in the office to so that you'll qualify for the loan to be forgiven. But then that adds the added stress of you've got to figure out a creative way to get people back in the office safely. So I'm not really sure whether we will go ahead and reopen, given those guidelines, or still, try and continue to do some of what we're doing now in the terms of telemedicine, and maybe doing a balance between telemedicine and actually trying to see some patients in the office. So it's like the PPP loan is kind of meant to help, but in a sense, it kind of hinders you in a way as well, because you're going to be spending money right up front when maybe your business is slow, and by the time your business kind of picks up, you'll have to wait for the turnaround for insurances to start paying you again to be able to handle your expenses. So it's kind of a stressful, difficult decision to make, but
Mm-hmm.
uh, hoping things will work out as well as I'm hoping they will.
Yeah, I certainly hope so too. I wish you the very best with your practice, as well as, you know, from the business standpoint of things. Um, that's I think a lot of times we aren't aware necessarily of everything that goes into uh, making healthcare work, you know, especially in a smaller practice. It sounds like you wear a lot of hats, Dr. Gibbs.
Yes, I kind of wear a lot of hats, even when things are working optimally, but definitely in this stress situation that we're in now.
Mhm. One other thing that I wanted to ask you about was in terms of telemedicine. Is that something that you had already implemented into your practice? And if not, what was it like to transition to 100% telemedicine, and then practically overnight, and then going forward, uh, based on your experience with telemedicine during this time, how do you see it either continuing with your practice in the short term and or long term?
Okay, so no, I did no telemedicine prior to this pandemic. And luckily, the insurance companies made the allowance to cover telephone visits as an added portion of telemedicine.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't really have to do the video component. So a lot of the rules they've kind of temporarily made adjustments to.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, I was able to get into it right away in terms of making telephone calls, and as long as you had consent and some privacy, you were able to go forward with that. In the future, I will probably be, making adjustments and adding telemedicine into my practice. And I've been, searching for some video components to add in, and which is kind of a problem in the sense of, being in a rural area and not many people having access to internet. A lot of people have telephones, but may not have smartphones. So still trying to make some adjustments to figure out the best way to add it into the practice so that it would benefit the most patients. But I think it will definitely be a big part of the practice, especially because I think this pandemic situation, to some extent, will go on for a while, and we will probably all have to be a little more, reach out a lot more in a lot different ways than we previously had to.
Right. Well, thanks so much again, Dr. Gibbs, for taking the time out to be with us and share your experiences and insight. What I'd like to do now is to open it up to all of our guests. If you have any questions for any of us here on the call today, for Dr. Gibbs, for Jamie, the massage therapist, for Antonio at Fund 17, or for Jay with SCORE.
I have a question, if I may.
Sure, go ahead. I think this is Mrs. White. How are you today?
I'm great, thank you. My question is to Dr. Gibbs and Mr. Knocking.
Okay.
Are you able to acquire things like bleach and alcohol? Is it scarce for you as well as it is for the regular lay person?
That's a great question. So the question is about cleaning supplies, basically. There are going to be some, pretty stringent requirements for sanitization. Are you able to access those supplies in a timely manner? How about you, Dr. Gibbs?
Um, we before we closed, we had a lot of difficulty because I guess planning wise, we just couldn't have, realized that the supplies would be as limited as they were. So yes, that was some difficulty. But one thing that helps us is my office is I lease my office space from a hospital, and it's actually a part of the hospital building. And they actually share some of the cleaning sources. And supplies for us. So that helps because they planned ahead, of course, and kind of had a emergency plans in place. So their supplies were kind of plentiful. So luckily they were able to share with us. And I'm hoping that situation will continue as we return back to the office. But it's a problem. And we've been trying to collect supplies and put things aside to use for later.
Wow. And how about you, Jamie?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thankfully, I'd already bought some bleach just the other day, so I have that already. But I have been looking into, I guess, a more pleasant fragrance, like a medical grade cleaner that would have a better smell than bleach. But there definitely does look to be a major backlog to attain something like that. So something like that may not be able to be in, at least in the places I've looked, for another month or two, if even then.
Wow. So then, in the meantime, if you want to open before a month or two down the road, you'll kind of have to make do with sort of the most basic cleaning agents.
Exactly. So if people want to get services, they'll just have to endure the bleach. But it'll be diluted, and I'll look to see if I can add some type of some type of fragrance into it, so it's not quite as strong a scent of the bleach scent. And we'll have maybe a eucalyptus, some eucalyptus in there, or lavender.
Mm-hmm. I guess along those same lines, for both of you, I guess the other supply that is masks. What kind of access do you have to masks, and how will you, plan to kind of manage those materials, starting with reopening and going forward?
Um, as far as for massage, they haven't really said if we need a specific mask. I know they're wanting to keep that more for doctors and nurses, but I did read in one of the massage pages, someone did ask the question if we're allowed to get the what is the N95 mask, because we are working in a health related field. So that question hasn't been answered as of yet. So as of now, it appears that we're supposed to, as long as we're wearing some type of mask.
And what about your clients? Will they be required to wear a mask during their services?
It would appear that would be the likely scenario, and of course the safest for everyone.
April, I think you muted yourself. Well, Jay, uh, April, are you on the
Let's see.
line? Oh, I can hear you now.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Um,
great.
okay. Sounds like I'm back.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Okay. So then, Dr. Gibbs, how about you? What is the mask situation like for you?
Again, luckily, I'm attached with the hospital, and the supply at our hospital, although it's a small hospital, they've assured us that they've got an adequate supply of masks for our staff and everything. Clients, we have a limited supply, but certainly because everybody's wearing masks now, that'll be, request that they wear a mask when they come to the office. And for those that don't have one, we will be able to supply one, and hopefully that supply will just outlast this pandemic situation.
All right. Well, that certainly sounds promising. Um, let's see. Do we have any more questions from our attendees? Feel free to jump right in. All right. Well, Jay, I think this might be a good time to pause for some of our Q&A.
Okay. Actually, I saw somebody came on the line earlier. I wanted to see if LaShonda over at True Fund would like to. Did you have anything new going on?
Hey Jay, how are you?
I'm doing all right.
Thanks for having us on. So we don't necessarily, well, that's not true. We do have something new going on. And excuse the background noise. I'm actually out with my family, trying to get a few hours, these last few hours before the sun goes down to get a little stress relief. But we do have a digital marketing program that we have open. It's focused on, really establishing your digital presence right now. And I know lots of folks are really focused on in this time that they might have that's considered, I loosely use the term downtime. But when they're not necessarily fully focused on their typical work schedule, that they maybe want to take a little bit more time out to cultivate some skills that might be able to help them in this new environment as they're looking for ways to help people understand that they're still in business, how to reach them and communicate, what's the best way to engage with them as a business as they move forward. For example, the physician and the masseuse, how do they communicate the requirements for patients when they're coming in, and or helping the patients become comfortable to return to their services. So that is something that's new that we're doing. As far as the PPP loan process is going, for the New Orleans area, we don't have any more funding that's available. I know that has been a challenge. I got on a little bit late, so I tapped in just as one of the panelists were talking about the challenges related to the PPP process. And I would just recommend, if you've gone to, let's say, a larger banking institution or some other funder and had a challenge with getting processed, that there are some smaller lenders like CDFIs that still do have funds available that you can apply through. I know there's been a lot of confusion and misinformation as it relates to that program and people's ability to qualify and be eligible, as well as how to make those calculations. So I would just strongly recommend folks, to maybe not just stop at the first lender who maybe didn't take the time to sit down and go through the process with them, and or didn't necessarily help them to be informed about, their application. So I would strongly recommend folks to pursue that process if they've not been deemed ineligible based on the guidelines. Other than that, I would be open to questions if anyone had any, but that's pretty much what's new with us in this sort of COVID-19 environment.
LaShonda, this is Antonio. I was wondering, do you know if Hope Credit Union is one of those local lenders that still has funding for PPP loans?
Yes, so as far as I understand, Hope in the New Orleans area, Hope still has funds available. Lift Fund also still has funds available for the New Orleans area specifically. beyond the two of them, I'm not sure who else still has funds, but I'm pretty sure that Hope still has some funds available for the New Orleans area.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I have a question. I'm actually going to turn this to both LaShonda and Antonio, because you guys are both offering programs to help business owners show up their skills. Can you just tell us a little bit more about why they should consider joining these programs? Certainly, it seems obvious to a lot of us, and for a lot of business owners, these types of things are exciting. Like, for example, me, my background is in psychology, so things like marketing and finance are things I find very interesting and challenging and sort of fun. But for many small business owners, they either just don't have the time, or they just, really can't wrap their heads around it. What can you say to folks like that to encourage them to give it a try? And how do your programs help people who really are just sort of starting out with those aspects of business?
Sure, I could talk a little bit to some of the announcements I made earlier about some webinars. We are planning our Capital Ready program to launch in June, which is a longer program that supports entrepreneurs with both their personal and business finances. And on the personal side, that includes debt management and savings plans and personal budgeting. And then on the business, it includes business budgeting, bookkeeping, and projections and applying for capital. So that's one of those longer programs, but the announcements I made earlier are webinar based. So, I mean, partly the reason I think you should join is because I'm, sensing a lot of turmoil with the business community right now, and it's affected me personally a little bit, and so I feel responsible. I feel like I need to be providing resources as much as I can, as much as we can at Fund 17. So part of it is, that's part of what why I personally might want you to join. But if you you mentioned a second ago, April, the business owners may not have time right now, and I'm definitely feeling at the end of the day lately like I can't do too much more. So we are trying to provide some of these webinars at different times earlier in the day. Off the top of my head, I unfortunately can't say right now, but there are the links that I put in the chat. The budgeting and cash flow analysis webinar, which is in the evening and is tomorrow, is going to actually help you free up some of your time if you are being less reactive to your budget situation and more proactive, and you're kind of always have your temperature of what's coming in and going out and what's possible beneficially or negatively in the near term, and what your goals are that can really give you a sense of direction. I think April also mentioned just feeling a little bit confused and not wrapping your head around. That is why we started the Entrepreneur Support Group. I think a lot of you may be feeling that you know what to do, but you need a little bit of confirmation from peers or from just someone to talk to. And that is really the motivation behind the support group. Other than that, I think like our like, this is a time to pivot. This is a time to invest more in new marketing strategies and ways to keep customers engaged when you're not able to engage with them in person. And that is why you should attend our Pivot webinar series, which is, I mentioned earlier, led by Crystal Sims, who is a marketing expert and consultant and has worked with a number of major brands and has a lot of experience around how to engage and grow your customers and sales. So that's definitely, obviously, a really important topic right now. So I think I've given enough responses for the time being on that. But yeah, I'd love to pass it off to LaShonda.
So I would ditto and second everything that Antonio just said. In addition to that, when I reflect on what we've been seeing over the past several weeks, as well as just, we as a True Fund, we have a long history working with small businesses in a sort of post-disaster situation. And what we see at every turn and at every disaster is the same thing that we're seeing today during the COVID-19 crisis, is that, folks just aren't, because as a small business, we know that people are often operating based on a skill or a talent or an interest in a particular area that is not necessarily business management, right? And so we're very clear about that. But what we also see is that small businesses often either forget or fail or overlook the understanding of, or the fact that having sort of a team or resources with you or sort of around your business, if you will, to really help support it is really important, no matter how small you are. So whether that's the fact that you have access to an accountant or bookkeeper that you don't necessarily, have on retainer, but that you have a relationship with that can help you to make sure that, you're filing your taxes in a way that makes sense for your business and supports your structure and your strategic outlook in terms of growth of your business, or whether it's having access to or knowing who the resources are related to the legal aspects of business. And really you could put marketing, any of those sort of core business functions in kind of replace that core business function with any of the others, and it's still the same thing, that because businesses are oftentimes, the owners are consumed with sort of running the business, working, in the business. They aren't necessarily taking the time to work on that business and or taking the time to have the resources and the infrastructure in place around their business to really help to create a foundation that they can rely on in these hard times when businesses need to, have documentation ready, not just, have a resource to go to at some point to be able to pull together, but be kind of Johnny on the spot. When we look at the PPP process and the history of that, it's, the folks who had their things, at go and who were ready to submit their documents in that first round are the ones that were able to get funded, right? So anybody who was sort of scrounging around trying to figure out what document was what, or where to get it, or how to, maybe pull it together, they missed the boat. And some of those folks are still missing the second round because they don't necessarily have those things in order, nor a resource in place really helping them with that. And so, it's not to point the finger at anyone, it's simply to highlight a fact that, when we look at access to capital, when we look at being able to take advantage of the different government resources that are available, documentation matters, and the ability to be able to access and share information in a timely manner is really, really critical to being able to take advantage of the opportunities that are available. And so for, those reasons alone, in addition to, all that Antonio shared, participating in programs like what we're offering at True Fund and like what's being offered at Fund 17, our digital marketing program right now, it's worth taking the time to invest in yourself and your business to really support that idea of pivoting, to really support that idea of how do I grow strategically through this time and not just survive it, but maybe come out on the other end a little stronger because I was able and willing to take the time to commit and invest in really sharpening skills and or just gaining a level of understanding that helps to sort of guide and inform your decision making as you move forward. So that's been something that we found is to be a real challenge for the small businesses that we work with. And we're talking about micro businesses up to businesses that have, several, they've got dozens of employees or maybe even, 100 employees or so, but they're not necessarily operating like a larger scale business. They're still, really operating as they have been for many years and hadn't quite made that transition in terms of their processes to really elevate, how they're managing their business. As well, when we look at that idea of what business resiliency means, it's clear that it's more than just being able to be prepared for, the bad things that we know happen, or the challenges that pop up, or the risks that are associated with these sort of devastating, disaster-oriented times, but really being prepared for opportunity as well. So those would be the reasons why I would say, take the time. I know there's so much going on, and even if you're not necessarily actively, working because your business has been shut down, I know your mind is working, overtime, either stressed out or trying to figure out, what's your next move, or, how to get through tomorrow. But I would say, if you're able to take the time to invest in yourself and in your business, and to learn a little bit about how you might be able to strengthen your business moving forward.
Thank you both so much. Those are all really strong justifications, to branch outside of your personal expertise and into the broader management of the operations around your expertise. So thank you both so much for sharing that. I guess just a couple last things for both of you, which is, how can people sign up to participate in the programs at your organizations?
Sure. So we are, we're posting all of these events on Facebook. And that's really the main way right now. We also have them up on Eventbrite. So if you look up Fund 17 on Facebook, you can find us there. And we, if you would like to sort of stay permanently aware of the different things we offer, you can go to fund17.org/contact and sign up for our newsletter, and you'll get updates as we send them out, usually not more than once a month, but during COVID-19, they've been going out more than once a month.
And for True Fund, we too can be found on social media, on Facebook, LinkedIn, as well as Eventbrite, in terms of our different programs or opportunities that we have available. Also, I recommend folks to give us a call. I can be reached at 504-293-5526, or by email at lrene@truefund.org at any time. If anyone has a question about a program, whether they feel like it's something that is going to be relevant or applicable to their business, and or they just have maybe some other questions about, sort of the ecosystem and resources that they have that are available, and or accessing capital, they can reach us at any time. So also our website is truefund.org, where we have ways to get in touch with our staff.
Thank you both again. And I do want to just reiterate for everybody that Fund 17 and True Fund are both nonprofit organizations, and their programs are free to people who want to sign up. So you will not incur a cost in the investment in yourself and your business. We have just a little bit of time left on the call, and what I'd like to do is just to kind of open it up for anybody on the call. If you have any questions or comments that you'd like to share about your experience, how things have been working out for you, or any challenges that you're still having. Let's see. I'm going to start calling on people. Let's see. Mrs. White, I see that you're still on the call. Do you mind sharing a little bit with us about what you're doing, and of course, you're also there in Georgia, where things are opening up. How is the state reopening affecting your organization and your work? How are you feeling about reopening at this time? Do you think it's a good time to reopen for you right now, or do you want to kind of wait it out a little longer?
With us, the museum is a very small building, and we've decided not to open during this time, even though others businesses are opening. We also normally have a festival in June. We've postponed that to October, but as we continue to listen to all the data that's out there, it seems that October may be just as bad as now. So we're in a quandary of sorts as what we should actually be doing, and how can we maintain the museum during this time, because the museum is based entirely on volunteers. We do not have employees. So the monies that were available, did not apply to us. And so we're just unsure as to what the effect will be. But of course, our Juneteenth celebration is not going to take place. And so we then changed it to an anniversary celebration of the museum. But here again, we're not sure about that. Because we are volunteer based, we probably are not as affected as we think, because our volunteers are still there. The expense of the building, the only real expense we have will, is the utilities, maintaining things like an alarm system and so forth. So it's sort of low key expenses. It's not that big budget item or anything like that that we have to worry about. But we definitely want to maintain safety, and we definitely do not want to be enclosed in small spaces and cause the spread of the coronavirus. So for now, we're just not opening.
Okay, and so then my question for you is, with remaining closed on site, what possibility is there for the museum to start creating virtual opportunities for people to connect with the museum?
Well, we're in the process of working on a few virtual tours that we would like to have implemented by June. And then of course, then we also have a few that we would like to have in place by October. So we're working on that, as well as a few other things.
And then one other question that I have, being that the museum is nonprofit and volunteer-based, you said that the cost of maintaining the physical building aren't that great, but personally, working a lot with technology, I know that the cost of virtual tours is not necessarily cheap. So is that a concern for your museum, that you want to explore different technologies, but maybe it's not as simple as simply saying, oh, we'd love to do this and then doing it?
Well, we are not at zero as far as our budget is concerned. We do have some monies. We just have to be very wise in how we choose to spend it. And then, you know, coming up with virtual tours, we also have to come up with ways to make money virtually. So
Right.
it sort of goes hand in hand.
And is the museum in need of any extra volunteers during this volunteers during this time, you know, to help with that digital transformation?
We do not turn away volunteers. So yes, we do need volunteers with any aspect of what we're trying to do right now. I noticed, I think you're on mute, April.
Sorry about that. Okay, sorry. Okay, so I was trying to tell them a little bit about the museum, but I think I'll just turn it over and let you tell them about the museum. Tell us about the museum, what your mission is, and how people can contact you either to volunteer or simply to learn more about the organization.
Well, the museum's phone number is 706-408-4448. Our website is jimree.org, JIMREE.org. And email can be the same. My name, Orlin White, at jimree.org, or Jimmy's name, or other member names. Yeah. And so our museum is a African American museum. We mainly concentrate on local history, but we also include national and international history of African Americans. And so because it is African American, it does not mean we do not include other races, because in some instances, those other races might be tightly linked to an African American and what their achievement was. So on a very small scale, you may find something on another race there.
Thank you so much, Mrs. White, for taking the time to share that with us. And I wish you the best with continuing the work of the museum going forward.
Thank you.
All right, and so we have just a little bit of time left. And I do want to say a few words just to thank everybody who's been with us these past several weeks, meeting bi-weekly for this virtual town hall. It's really been very engaging, and I want to thank Jay Reed, you know, for all he's done to kind of really pull it together, you know, from time to time, or rather from week to week. We're really, you know, just, you know, trying to kind of pull it together to share these resources and, you know, and just kind of share things as we get the information ourselves, and really try to create a space, you know, just to kind of keep in touch with each other, and also to kind of keep abreast of what issues people are really facing in their businesses. Because as one of our callers said, a lot of times the smallest businesses can fall through the cracks. And so I really hope that this has been helpful, helpful for business owners and for people who help business owners. Thanks again to everybody that has been part of this SCORE, True Fund, Fund 17, and to all of our guests who have participated with us tonight, as well as during the other calls. Jay, do you have Any closing words you'd like to share with us?
Um, I can say a few. Like April said, I want to thank everybody for joining us these few weeks as we deal with uncertain times that we're in. Definitely want to thank April, Antonio, LaShonda, and everybody for coming in and what resources are out there. And I want to thank our guests like Jamie and Dr. Sandra, for just giving us insight as far as from a business owner's point of view of how they're dealing with the situations. Like April said, this is our last scheduled one, but we've been talking and we will be doing more virtual town halls. We're actually going to be moving them to the first week of every month. And that's just giving everybody time to deal with what they have to deal with in their personal lives, take advantage of all the different programs that are popping up now, because there are a lot of good programs like LaShonda and Antonio mentioned that they're hosting, and other organizations will be hosting some real good programs. For instance, SCORE is going to be hosting, we'll be hosting some programs like next week. We're doing some cybersecurity workshop, just because with the way the new normal is, there's going to be a lot of technology in use, and we want to make sure everybody's aware of how to protect themselves online and in their business. And we want to make sure that we share all that information with everybody. So going forward, expect to see more virtual town halls once a month, where you'll get more great insight and then get up to date on what's going on out there. So hopefully we can have everybody back, like Antonio, LaShonda, April, and everybody, to tell us what's going on with their organizations and how they're helping the community. But other than that, that's all I have to say for today.
Thanks so much. Let's see. I see we have Dr. Holloway on the call. If maybe she can chime in and just share a few words with us.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, I really don't have anything else to say other than I've just been enjoying sitting and listening and sharing with everyone, and actually sharing some of your concerns that we hear under Jay at SCORE's leadership, with the challenges that business owners have. And we, just like all the rest of you, are seeking to provide whatever assistance we can, knowledge, just a third ear or eye or whatever. But I'm just pleased with all that I've heard, and I'm just trusting that everyone is able to get back into their normal flow and manage their businesses as they need to. And thanks for the opportunity to share.
Thank you. How about Antonio? Do you want to say a few closing words, Antonio?
Sure. This has been a great experience. Well, what I mean is thank you for the invitation, Jay, for co-hosting this town hall with you. It's been a good experience for me overall. I think it's helped us show the importance of creating regular spaces where entrepreneurs can be co-located virtually or not. It's honestly helped to inspire a little bit of program development for Fund 17. We are really prioritizing connectivity between entrepreneurs, recognizing that network building is one of the really important assets that you can have as a business owner, particularly with in disruptive times. Having a good network that you can leverage when your usual resources aren't available is really important for adapting as a business in times like these. So yeah, thank you so much, Jay, and for the incredible facilitation, April. and for all the other awesome things that have come out of working with SCORE. And when I say an inspired program development for Fund 17, I mean it. And that's why I made a number of announcements earlier around our support group coming up, our Pivot biweekly adaptive coaching program. And yeah, so I feel like I should say thank you. Thank you, everyone on the call. Thank you.
Now,
Thank you.
I do want to put one more thing out. I know a lot of people saying that I've done a good bit to help put this together, but I do want to point out that this was the idea of April Ham. She came to me with the idea, and I just thought it was a great idea, and that's why that's why we went with it, and that's why we're moving forward with it. So I want to thank April for starting us off with this idea.
Thank you, Jay. I'm just really glad that we were able to pull it together. I was just sharing with a friend that I'm very much a planner. I like things happening in an orderly manner, planned out well in advance. And, but this was just a time that we really needed to keep up with the time in the time that things are happening. And so that was definitely not something I could do by myself. And I'm just really glad that we were able to come together and create something that has been extremely meaningful and powerful. LaShonda, would you like to say a few closing words?
Thank you all for having us. Thanks to Jay. Thanks, Antonio. Thank you, April. It's been our pleasure to participate and to be a resource. And I just encourage folks to reach out if they have any questions or needs. And we always say, if we can't help you, we will connect you with someone who can. So kudos to those of you who have been participating in the regular scheduled town halls and participating in other informational sessions and really investing the time to figure out, what's the best way forward for your business, and just reach out if you need anything. And that's it. Thank you.
All right, and I will open it up really quickly to Dr. Gibbs and Jamie, if you'd like to say anything else before we close out. All right.
Just trying to recreate. I'm sorry, I don't know if you were listening to that or not, but I was just thanking you for the invite to participate in this program. I've heard some valuable tools and lessons of things that I might need to look at for my future business development. I know these are changing times, and I've got to learn to change with them. So I would definitely be reaching out.
That's really great to hear. Jamie, do you have any last words?
Yes, I appreciate the opportunity to speak here. And as Dr. Gibbs mentioned, I definitely need to evolve with the future, and I'm definitely looking forward to evolving and getting on and moving forward.
Glad to hear it. Thanks so much again, everybody, for being on the call. To all of our attendees, thank you for joining us and listening in. I see that Dr. Ham was on the call today. She spoke with us last week. Thank you for coming back to listen in with us today. Please keep in touch with us. We will be keeping you posted on future virtual town halls. And again, of course, be sure to follow social media to find out about all the great webinars and programs coming up to help you continue to grow your business.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Have a great night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Have a good night.